former number 10 advisor and founder of Conservative Home. Tim, thank you for coming on the show.
Good morning, Jake.
Good to see you again. Tim, have you had the opportunity to have a look at the speech that Rishi Sunak has just given? And is he right? Do we need to clamp down on the additional 1 million people who have been signed off for sickness since COVID?
Well, I haven't seen the full speech yet, Jake, but I've seen some of the extracts, and I've heard some of the morning round of interviews that Mel Stride, the Work and Pension Secretary, has done. And I think this is a genuine problem that really does need to be tackled. There is, and I think particularly since the pandemic, there has been a rise in mental health problems. I think we have to be sensitive to the fact that a lot of people have got real life struggles at the moment, and we need to help them. But the country simply cannot afford to have quite so many people applying for sickness benefits and living at the expense of people, taxpayers, who are often already struggling. We all know the cost of living pressures. And so I think this is an effort to achieve more fairness. Fairness for those people who need help with their mental health, but fairness also for taxpayers who are already paying the highest tax burden since the Second World War.
But Tim, only 6 months out from likely date of a general election in early October, governments only do things in this sort of time in the parliamentary lifespan that seem to, they think, are more likely to be popular with the public. Is this electorally smart of Rishi Sunak and his team? Is this something that's going to encourage people to vote Conservative? Is this thing our voters, Conservative voters, care about?
Well, look, Jake, if Jesus Christ returned today and for some theologically debatable reason became leader of the Conservative Party would still lose the next general election. I think our party is doomed. But so if we're looking to judge this policy on whether it's going to transform Tory fortunes, then it would definitely be a no from me. But is it the right kind of thing a Conservative government should be doing? Trying to be a good steward of taxpayers' money, of stopping abuse of the welfare state while helping people in genuine need? It's definitely the right sort of policy. But electorally, I don't think it will make any difference at all, because I think people have stopped listening to Rishi Sunak, have stopped listening to Conservative ministers. They want a change in government, but that doesn't mean that this isn't good housekeeping from a government in its last few months.
OK, well, it's good for the Conservative Party to occasionally try and do Conservative things. That's normally the sort of thing I would support. On the issue of good housekeeping, we hear that the government has dropped its pledge to get flights off to Rwanda by the spring, now pushing it into late summer, of course, saying that it's the Labour Party's fault and Labour peers in the House of Lords who are blocking it. Do you think, again, the electorate even care about this, or is this Rwanda policy something the electorate has stopped listening to?
Well, I did a completely unscientific poll amongst people who follow me on Twitter, on X, the other day. Nearly 4,000 people voted, and only 4% of those people thought that the Rwanda policy would make a difference. And I would be one of those people who, 96% who don't think it will make a substantial difference. And I don't have an ethical objection to the policy, Jake. I think it's perfectly reasonable to deport people who enter our country illegally, to get them to Rwanda or wherever. But in terms of actually a policy that will make a difference, the government has put so many eggs in this basket, and I just don't think it will make much of a difference, partly because the government in Rwanda aren't willing to take the scale of people that would be necessary to establish this policy as a proper deterrent. I think
Tim,
the government would be much better.
Doesn't it speak to trust, though? Doesn't it speak to trust? Because we were told by the Prime Minister that he would stop the boats. They are still coming. We were told by the Prime Minister that flights would leave for Rwanda in the spring. That hasn't happened. So whether people think it'll work or not, isn't there just a bit of an expectation that the government does what it says it's going to do?
Yes, but is it really worth having a policy that isn't going to make much of a difference? I think it would be much better if a year or so ago, when Rishi Sunak became Prime Minister, he said this isn't going to make enough of a difference, it's cost too much money, and I'm going to shelve it. But
Tim,
perhaps we're too far
if we only voted for policies that actually worked in Parliament, one, we wouldn't end up voting on very much, and two, we definitely wouldn't have voted for this absurd smoking ban earlier this week. Look, moving on slightly to the Labour Party, we learned two things today. First of all, that the Labour Party appear to have destroyed all documentation, having a sort of shredding party of documents which could have revealed where Angela Rayner lived when she applied to become a Labour MP. In all fairness to the Labour Party, they say they haven't just done it in her case. This is their standard practice. This Angela Rayner story, sort of querying where she may or may not have lived, whether she owed tax or not, she completely denies all wrongdoing whatsoever. It isn't going away, is it, for the Labour Party?
It's not going away, but just to make a slightly broader point, if I may, Jake, we have the arrest of Nicola Sturgeon's husband in Scotland. We've had the Mark Menzies business, which you just focused on. I think the sad thing for politics at the moment is that all of the political parties are mired in allegations of this kind. And it's very sad. And my worry about the effect on voters of seeing all of politics just behaving so dysfunctionally when we could be talking about the big issues that the country faces. The West, as a civilization, I think, is in trouble. We're not investing in our defence. There was a talk yesterday about Scotland not meeting its climate change targets. We have an economy that's very sluggish compared to historical performance. And all we're talking about are these scandals. And it's really not good for faith in democracy.